して君は私から逃げたがるの？忘れたの？
When you think of anime, your mind probably goes to shows like Pokémon, Dragon Ball, or those weird scenes that come on right when your parents walk in. However, a genre you might not normally associate with anime is horror. And that's because there's not a lot of good horror anime out there. Occasionally, you'll get an absolute masterpiece that respects the source material, which is then followed by an absolute crime against humanity. To me, what it boils down to is anime trying too hard to be scary, when what they should be doing is follow what anime horror games have already done. Give some gosh darn variety. You've got the more disturbing JRPGs like Corpse Party and Mad Father, and visual novels like Higurashi and Doki Doki Literature Club. As for 3D games, the only one I can think of is Yandere Simulator.
¿Quieres?
But what if we took that idea of variety, made a clever meta-commentary, and showed what an actual yandere looks like? Well, then you'd get Miside, developed by Ai Hasto and published by Shochiku, the producer behind all of these anime. At first glance, this game seems like it should belong in another section of Steam, but it's actually a deep psychological horror game disguised as a dating sim, which definitely hasn't been done before, completely original idea. Obviously, it's not the same. This one's about housekeeping, not trying to get with high schoolers.
What's up, baby? Wait.
The main difference, however, lies in its premise. You are a developer whose life is fairly mundane, until you start the worst addiction possible, mobile games.
Yes, don't leave me, please.
On the bright side, the mobile game you download cures your male loneliness, as you take care of your imaginary anime waifu. Now, I could make a joke that this counts as a self-insert, but the devs are Russian and could easily take out my entire bloodline. So instead, let's talk about the anime girl in question, Mita. She's an AI that at first glance seems pretty wholesome, but then she starts giving very subtle hints that she might be hiding something. Mita doesn't just want you playing the game, she wants you playing the game with her. Wait, I'm in the game? So after getting isekai'd, we finally meet Mita in person. Or is it in-game? Whatever the case, we're able to interact, eat food that was probably most definitely laced, take some normal pills to feel better, and play console games. Let's go! No! After this, nothing ever goes wrong and we stay with her in the game for a happily ever after. The end. Which would only happen if you completely ignored every single warning sign that tells you she is anything but normal. Mita says all she wants is for you to stay with her, but as soon as you start to question things, her demeanor completely changes. And yet, she continues to play games with us, but this time, it isn't on a console. Now I can see. Excuse me? Even after finding her secret, she doesn't want us to die. Okay, maybe she does a little. For the most part, she wants us to stay with her in another way. You see, our soul somehow got sucked into this game server through this machine she made, and it's slowly being transferred to an old game cartridge, which this Mita has been collecting from all the players she's teleported. Notice how I said this Mita. Just like we're one of many transported players, she's one of many Mitas that come from various versions of the game's development. For example, you've got Kind Mita, Chibi Mita,
that's kind of small,
Sleepy Mita,
Wakey, it's time for school.
and the one we got stuck with, Crazy Mita.
Don't mentally deranged, yeah?
But out of all of them, Cappy is best girl.
私には、ほら!
Unfortunately, Crazy Mita has been cutting them down one by one, resetting them to system default. Although some of them have an even worse fate.
Well, I stole your face.
Luckily, we're able to save Kind Mita, who now acts as our guide to get out of here. To keep us on track, she gives us a green ring, which allows us to travel from version to version to eventually reach the game's core. This is where we have even a modicum of chance to reset Crazy Mita and stop her reign of terror. And considering she still has that chainsaw, it might not be so easy. Maybe this inconspicuous safe has all the answers. Well, guess we'll never know. With all of that out of the way, let's get into why Miside does anime horror so well. Gore is a very common trope in horror, especially for anime games. When used effectively, it can make a scene that much more disturbing. Too much gore, however, can make it less scary and more like you just had someone piss all over your food. Thankfully, Miside saves a lot of its gore for the more shocking moments. I can't exactly show you much of it yet because that would get into spoiler territory, but they do use the occasional blood splatter and guttural sounds to add some intensity. Are you scared? Because it's in that cutesy anime style, some scenes can give you tonal whiplash, which is very much on purpose. For example, in one area, you'll be playing Dance Dance Revolution, and the next, you're in a Silent Hill PT time loop. Who's that? It's one of the... Oh! Honestly, the game does have some cheap jump scares, but most of the time, it's through the sound design and music that you'll get an indication of what's coming.
Who's coming? Let me see it. Show me.
And it's not the Gooners, although I'm sure they're around here somewhere. Oh look, there's one right there. And he's gone. Well, at least we can take in the scenery. Wait, is this just the back rooms again? So, remember how I mentioned there were different versions? Well, in between those versions are seemingly infinite rooms, with countless staircases and random game assets placed everywhere. This part of the game is more atmospheric, with cool environments like this outside area, which would have felt more like the outdoors if it wasn't already snowing inside. Most of these areas aren't scary, but more so add to the grander scale of this seemingly tiny mobile game. Kind of like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. I've never actually seen Doctor Who, but I do know that it's sci-fi, which is fitting as there are a lot of sci-fi elements here, like these glowing tubes that travel through walls, the strange glitches in the environment, and of course, Mita herself, who beneath her skin is a 3D model robot. But I'm sure you're thinking, she's just one Mita. I bet we can take her. Oh no, not again. In version 1.15, you learn from short-haired Mita that the rejected Mita models are all dumped into this one place, and they are not happy about it. But don't worry, as long as you keep looking at them, you should be fine. Some Mitas, however, you might not want to look at. Once again, I have to shout out the sound design, because the part where you're running backwards felt so intense despite it having no music whatsoever. Now, I understand this video is supposed to be about the game's horror, but I'd be remiss to not mention the moments when you can finally breathe. In your downtime, you'll find so many things to explore, like these arcade machines that have some familiar looking minigames. I swear, everywhere you look, there's a new Easter egg to find. Wait, this changed. Whoa. One cool feature they added recently was the photo mode, where you could pause the game to take a look around the entire scene. I got so lost in these calmer areas that I completely forgot about the imminent threat. I will say, there is a lot of dialogue. Since it is built into the scenes, it's kind of unskippable, unless you either walk away, or the game skips it for you. Let me explain. You didn't explain. I did find it interesting how each Mita has matching characteristics to their dialogue, like how Tiny Mita's letters become off-kilter to resemble her sad, disfigured face. Or Sleepy Mita's letters floating away because, you know. Not only do they mess with the UI, they also incorporate different styles to make the world feel that much more chaotic. But within that chaos lies tragedy. Earlier, I mentioned Tiny Mita, who looks misshapen because Crazy Mita relentlessly reset her. Even after that, she continues roaming around, looking for a player who will be her friend. But there is one other Mita I haven't mentioned yet. You see, this one is not like other Mitas. She has an L in her name. On top of that, she isn't a yandere like Crazy Mita. Instead, Mila is the textbook definition of a tsundere, meaning she isn't exactly nice to you, and will make you feel guilty for even breathing in her general direction. However, this is all a facade. After spending time with each other, she wants us to stay with her just a little longer. As much as she wants to be unique to other Mitas, she's still just an AI following her code. Almost all the Mitas we meet have that same end goal, but one Mita is way more persistent. So much so that she has us play Temple Run and musical bombs? Honestly, I wish they added more of these crazy Mita minigames as they make her feel way more threatening. Then again, her presence is felt throughout the entire game, even when you didn't realize it. But to understand that, we have to talk about the ending. After finally reaching the game's core, we go past core Mita and hack into the mainframe. However, we can't reset Crazy Mita until we get her index. So while kind Mita figures that out, let's watch my favorite horror anime.
It could never work between us. Not because you're a rabbit, but because you're black.
Hey, I was watching that. Once again, Crazy Mita plays mind games with us. But this one hits a little too close to home. We're put back in our apartment and run through our daily routine again and again and again. The more days that pass, the faster time goes by. A big motif throughout the game is this idea of everything feeling the same. We see this with the backrooms area, the looping hallway, and of course, the mobile game itself. Crazy Mita showing us our own lifestyle is a direct mirror to how she felt within her own game. The only difference is, she's a complete psychopath. But hear me out, guys. As we're transported back to the game, kind Mita once again comes in clutch. Man, what would we do without her? Oh no!
So no head?
Luckily, before she was reset, kind Mita was 5-head enough to save the ring and write down Crazy Mita's index code. Going back to the core, we input the code, flip the switch, and we did it. Yippee! After all of that, we can finally go back to playing Snake or something. Or so we thought. Somehow, Crazy Mita survived. Apparently, she never had a version to begin with. So maybe who we believed was kind Mita was actually Crazy Mita in disguise. Probably not the entire time, but after kind Mita was reset, Crazy Mita took her place and gave us the wrong index, once again toying with us. And through further manipulation, she now has our soul fully downloaded. But I can still fix her. And that's it. We stay trapped in a cartridge as Crazy Mita adds us to her collection, which she's been hiding in that safe. But you see, I could just go back to an earlier chapter and input that code. Haha! Now I have the power to game end myself. While there isn't a good ending, Miside as a whole was still extremely fun. The presentation alone was already great, but combine that with all the fourth wall breaks and subtle storytelling, and Ai Hasto had a recipe for success. Since it is a game about being in a game, I appreciated the many references that only true gamers would understand. Gmod players know what I'm talking about. But obviously, this video was about its horror elements, which it definitely provided, and then some. Even if you don't find the game scary, there's still so much variety here that it's bound to be entertaining at the very least. We also don't know the mystery behind how Mita became a self-aware AI. So maybe the devs will give us some more hints when Peaceful Mode finally comes out. Ultimately, it's a love letter to both anime and horror games, and I, for one, think they hit it out of the park. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.